uncensored. Welcome to COASTER-net Uncut.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net Uncut. I'm, of course, Andrew Barchak, joined once again by my co-host, Danny Miller. And tonight, as you see, we have the crew of Devin Olson Media back with us to talk a little Dreams to Screams Fury 325. So, guys, if you could, say who you are and where you're from. Devin, let's start with you.
Hey guys, my name's Devin, owner of Devin Olson Media, and I am broadcasting live from Savannah, Georgia.
Tawan, how about you? What are you up to tonight?
Yeah, so it's Tawan Brown here, composer for the documentary, and I'm checking in live from Ruther Glen, Virginia. And I'm about to eat some awesome ice cream. So
I see we got like the point of view tonight. We got some RPOV going. We got some POV going. So we're going to be all over the place with you, it seems. And then a newcomer. Unfortunately, the ever-famous Brian Bass was too busy to join us this evening, probably getting ready for his little Horror Nights trip this weekend. But we are joined by a newcomer here, also a member of the Devin Olson Media team. Eli, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hey, guys. Eli Erickson. I do the voiceover work for Devin and a lot of his documentaries, and I am broadcasting live from Pittsburgh, Virginia.
Ah, sweet.
Ooh.
So tonight,
Listen to that voice!
so money.
So golden voice.
The voice.
Listen to those pipes.
The sound, the voice, the mind. That's who we got here tonight, it looks like. Something like that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, tonight we're going to talk a little from Dreams to Screams Fury 325. That the last time we were joined by Devin Olson Media, we were just a few weeks, out from the actual release of the documentary. And since then, it's dropped, and it seems like a lot of people seem to like this one. So we're going to talk a little Dreams to Screams now that we've all seen it. Now that we all have a good idea of what it's all about. And we also have a number of listener questions that were submitted over the last few weeks by our glorious Uncut listeners. So, Danny, let's start with you. What were your thoughts on the documentary, and maybe if you have any questions?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think, and Devin, just last weekend, Devin and I happened to come across one another at Cedar Point, so we got to talk a little bit about it in person. And I think the big thing for me that really stuck out, there were a couple things, but one of them was the fact that you get to know the people behind the ride, and it's not just about the ride. You can turn on Travel Channel or Discovery Channel or even like Great American Country when I helped out with the All-American Amusement Park show for the Dorney Park segment. That kind of stuff is about the
television star.
No, that stuff's about the rides, and it's about the park specifically and the rides specifically.
When I was on TV on Great American Country, do you remember my
that's not what I was trying to do at all. But
it's called, or Possessed, or whatever the ride's called up there. I was hobnobbing with the guest host of that guy whose name I don't even remember. Do you remember that time when I rode on television? Ooh.
Yeah, well, I got to ride Behemoth and Leviathan on TV once too for Travel Channel.
Do you
But
remember that time I was on Travel Channel? Some people. I was at
it's going to be one of those nights, isn't it?
Somebody recognized me and said, "Hey, weren't you that guy on Great American Channel?"
Daniel,
That did happen.
Daniel, all you have to do is sing what my girl Tay Tay would sing. Shake it off. Shake it off. You know what I'm saying? The haters gonna hate.
And the players been picking on me for about 3 years now, so I've grown used to that. Anyways, getting back to my original point, you watch shows like that, those are about the ride and the park, and that's it. You don't get to learn about the people. What I liked about this one, and it's very similar to the previous From Dreams to Screams documentaries, you get to know the people. You get to hear Rob Decker. You get to hear Mike Fanel. You get to hear about some of the enthusiasts like Clint and Elizabeth. You get to hear about, the different side of it, the construction side of it, with Mosley Erecting and Ronnie Mosley. We haven't seen that side of things a whole lot ever. You hear about the ride designers and the people at the park who go into designing the ride, and they talk about the ride, where the name comes from, and how they decided on the layout. But the people who actually physically construct the ride, that's a very rare perspective to get. So I really liked having all those different point of views into one encompassing documentary, and how it was about the ride and about the park and what the ride meant to the park, but also, like it says in the opening, how the ride changed the lives of those people who helped put the ride together and those people who made it happen. And it's kind of a tribute to not just those 5 people, but to everyone who is a big part of the ride. So I like that it gives a different perspective, and it makes it seem like you're not just watching another documentary, because any Joe Schmo with a camera can go to an amusement park, shoot some B-roll, take a POV or whatever, and just throw together a documentary and say, oh yeah, this is the ride, it does this hill and it goes this fast and it's this tall. But you don't get the stories in those type of things, and that's what I liked about this one. The other thing that I was a big fan of was, I think the cuts of the video shots, just from an artistic point of view, the way the video is all put together, and the voiceovers and the music, I think everything flowed very, very nicely throughout the entire nearly a half hour of the documentary. I think everything flowed very nicely. There was a nice pace. There was a good rhythm to it, going back and forth. But it's hard when you have 5 people and varying perspectives to make sure you hit enough of each of those and you don't get bogged down with too much of any one person. And I thought the flow and the rhythm was really nicely done. The whole thing, artistically and content-wise, just was wonderfully done. So congratulations to all of you guys on that. So those are my thoughts on it. So I don't know who we want to go to next, but those were my thoughts after watching it several times.
But I don't think we've heard your criticisms yet, so we need the full scope. What was bad about it? We've heard the good.
Ooh boy. I quite honestly I didn't talk about this. Yeah. Whew.
Well, let me put this in perspective for you.
Come back to me. I wasn't expecting you to put me on the spot quite that quickly.
Ooh, Devin, you're so evil.
Yeah, Danny has a hard time criticizing anything. It's why he does things like
yes, I do.
It's why he does things like ranks Knoebels really high as a park, or loves Boulder Dash.
Devin, actually,
is the loving of Manta. Let's just throw that out there too. So
So Devin, I know you asked me before the initial release. You had asked me to take a look at different parts of it, and the 2 things that I caught and that I thought were maybe a little, I don't even know if they were intentional, but the 2 things that stuck out in my mind is maybe that doesn't quite flow right. I think both of those were changed for the final version. So for me, watching it now, it's hard for me to pick out anything that I don't like, because I think everything that I thought maybe was a little strange or maybe didn't like, I think was altered for the final version. So maybe that's why I'm having a hard time coming up with something.
Okay, well maybe Andy has some legitimate criticisms he can start us off with before he gives the good.
Okay, to start off with there's just one thing. It was one thing, and I've actually seen other people say this as well. That because, like I said before, we posted this out on Facebook, and one of the general questions is why did you choose the enthusiast that you chose? for the documentary, because it was stated that neither of them are really, their home park is not Carowinds. And their home park, both of them, their home park is King's Dominion. And I think the answer might be obvious, but what would you say to that statement of why choose Clint and Elizabeth over somebody else?
Yeah, well, they
They were there.
offered us, I mean, the most for our money, so we had to go with the highest bidder. No. Yeah, so that was actually a really interesting story. Yeah. So I was not going to include more than simply the three main stars from the beginning, which were Mike, the GM of the park, Ronnie, the owner of the erecting company that put up the ride, and then of course our returner, Rob Decker, from the upper echelons of Cedar Fair corporate, and that was going to be the cast. And then we'd actually worked with Elizabeth on Up Until Fury, our biggest documentary, which was up at Busch Gardens in Virginia, and Elizabeth just stood out. She rocked it on camera. I mean, she is a walking, talking soundbite. That's my phrase to describe Elizabeth. And so when I saw her there, and we had just this break, like an hour, 2 hour break during production, and before we could get our hands on Rob to get his story, and I just said, Elizabeth, would you mind sitting down and let's just, I'm not sure if we're going to use this, but I want to get your take on the ride, and I know that you have a lot of ties to Carowinds. She went there a lot as a kid, and we have some pictures of that you'll see in the documentary. And then Clint, I happen to run into him, and we go way back, and I've wanted to put him in a documentary for years and years. And so, little known fact, he and Tawan are actually best friends. And so, a lot of ties. He's a great guy. He's also very in the loop. Good times. And so Clint is very elaborate. He can just present himself very well on camera, and I think he knows how to give it a true perspective from an enthusiast. Like when he's talking about, we see a little bit of spray paint on the ground, and people start freaking out, and even if it's a bathroom being built, people are posting pictures of it all over the internet. So I think he had the perfect perspective of the enthusiast community as a whole. Elizabeth, she's more on the side of the clubs, and she's got the childhood ties to Carowinds. So really, that was just kind of like it plopped in our laps as we were filming, and it just happened, and I wasn't sure if I was going to use that, and started editing it, and it worked really well with the story. Getting that other perspective that we haven't gotten before. And so, that wasn't really this selection process like, hey, let's narrow down the field of candidates. Who would be best to talk about? No, it was more just kind of happened on the day of, and it seemed to work into the edit. So, that's definitely a fair question.
And that was like one of like my main questions. But, on the positive side, the things I liked about it is I liked how this one took us from the very beginning of the building through the construction process and then through the end of it, where you had so much more access than you've had other times. And because, a lot of times you're just there, like, I know how the process goes. You're just there on media day, maybe that weekend, maybe a few other filming days here and there. But this one, it seems like you were at Carowinds constantly filming this thing. And then not only that, but you had such access leading up to the opening that it just felt like a very complete story from start to finish. And I really like that aspect of it that we really haven't gotten on any of the From Dreams to Screams videos.
And I think that's the new standard, and we can't ever lower the bar. So this is the standard that we have set up now, and so all future documentaries need to exceed that in terms of access, in terms of story, in terms of how deep we get with the people featured. And so, yeah, you can definitely expect some more of that on the next From Dreams to Screams.
And then I think the other real highlight of this one is, it just seems like, I don't know, it doesn't matter who you talk to, but Rob Decker always comes out as like the star of these things. He did it on the Gatekeeper doc, that we still quote Rob Decker to this day from the Gatekeeper doc. And it's just, once again, the Rob Decker interview towards the end with him talking about his kids and what these coasters mean to him, like, it just shows you the amount of love and time and work and dedication that these people put into it. And I think what Rob Decker does is, I don't know if it's just because you interview him and he feels very comfortable with you, but he seems very real and very genuine. Where a lot of times, these administrators, they give you sound bites, they give you what you want to hear. They're in tune with the 24-hour news media cycle. But Rob Decker just seems to open up to you guys for some reason, and it just makes it so much better of a piece that he's able to do that.
And I think that is one of those cases where we never want to ask him a question that he's been asked by a news team that day. It's always kind of thinking, what do people most want to know from him, but what is least asked of him? And I think it's just pinpointing those questions, because you're right, he's fantastic on camera. He's phenomenal, and he gives you exactly what you want every time. And so just being able to come at it from that perspective of what do we really want to know about Rob or about the project that we honestly don't know, that no one knows about it. And so he delivers every time. Man, when I asked him the question about how does this job interact with your family life, I knew he was going to give us gold, but I didn't expect that I'd be wiping a little tear away from my eye as he was answering it. So, man, he's a fantastic human being and so incredible on camera.
Absolutely. And Danny, do you have any other questions that you have in general before we get into the listener questions?
So I actually, thinking about it and thinking back to the Gatekeeper documentary, I guess I did kind of think of maybe not so much a criticism, but maybe more of a question. And I'm interested to hear the answer to this, and I haven't thought of it before. But something that we saw in the Gatekeeper documentary that just kind of dawned on me now that we didn't get in this one, we didn't have someone from B&M. Was there not anyone from B&M at the meet? I wasn't at the media day, so I don't know. Or could you not get an interview with someone from B&M? So I don't know the answer to that question, because I know Gatekeeper, you had Kim Gent, I think, and I know that
structural engineer.
I think someone, I forget who was there for it might have been Sophie was there for Banshee Media Day. But she didn't speak to anyone.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There was just no access to anyone from B&M that day, and I'm sure they had one or two folks there to oversee handing it over to the park and everything. But they do have some team members that just don't feel comfortable on camera. And not everyone does, so we don't argue with that, and there just wasn't that opportunity this time. But it's always great to get the perspective of the manufacturer, too. Like, the first From Dreams to Screams we did, we got to interview Sandor Kernix, the president of Intamin, and that was just fascinating, especially the stuff that we didn't include in the documentary that I wish we could, just hearing him talking about his competitors and how he views them and how they view him and what they do differently. And fascinating stuff.
I met him down at Napa. He is a fascinating guy.
Yes, definitely. Very smart.
Yes. So okay, so cool. That's all I got for right now, really. Oh,
Awesome.
I know. I talked to Tawad in our little Facebook group chat, but I'm waiting for that soundtrack to come out on like a CD or be downloadable somewhere because I want that Fury song at the end to be my ringtone.
You know what's funny? What's funny about that soundtrack is, well, it's coming, number one, so get ready. But what's funny about that song is, I don't know if many of you know, but Clint Novak got married on Saturday, and to Sherry Walker, and so they had as you can imagine, for a roller coaster enthusiast wedding, they had a very, very roller coaster enthusiast style wedding. And one of which was for the cocktail. Was it the cocktail hour? Or it was for dinner. During dinner, they had all these different theme songs playing from theme parks, whether it was like Pirates of the Caribbean or, I mean, just Pirates of the Caribbean, Jurassic Park. I mean, all these different theme songs that show up. But the very first song was the Feel the Fury song from the documentary, the very first song they played.
Cool.
And so the DJ's pumping it, and people are like, you know, and so that was a really awesome.
I could totally see that being like station music for that ride. Like, I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes, but they need to get that song playing in the station.
Yeah, it's one of those things where that's the thing that we wish sometimes with this stuff. We, you know, with things like the bigger companies, it's so much tougher with licensing and soundtracks, and a lot of them don't want to put forth the effort that it would take or the money that it would cost to kind of make those songs their own. But we have gotten such great feedback from all the upper management, you know, especially the people that were interviewed about the documentary and the music, and you know, other big things are in the works that I'm sure Devin will choose not to talk about, that are happening because of Fury as a catalyst. So it's really exciting to see where it's going. But yeah, the soundtrack is coming. I am currently remixing all the music. So even some of the music you heard in the documentary is going to be a bit different, but still the same essence. And Feel the Fury will be a part of that soundtrack package. So I can't wait to give the people what they want. And so everybody can feel the Fury on their phones and wherever they are. So.
All right.
Well,
yes. The people get what they want.
My next question goes to Eli, since you know, Eli, you're the newcomer here. You know, how did you get involved with these with these, you know, hoodlums over here and become the voice of the documentary?
Well, I had the most unfortunate semester at Liberty, being roommates with Devin.
Oh
no!
Oh man!
Yeah.
No, okay. Let me take it a step further back in time. We actually met. Guess where I met him? I met him at Carowinds in 2008, I believe.
Really?
2008.
Wow.
Yes, I met him at Carowinds because I knew his older brother, and I was passing through on a trip up from an internship I did in Florida back up to Virginia, and I asked his brother, Michael, I said, hey, are you free to come to Carowinds? And for whatever reason, he wasn't, but he said, hey, my brother's free, and so he came, and we've been good friends ever since, and I immediately noticed that he had the golden voice and knew that we might be able to take advantage of that in the future. And who knows? I mean, this is the first time I'm actually processing through that it's come full circle, that he just voiced this biggest documentary we've done, in a sense, for Carowinds, and we met at Carowinds. That's just, there's something cool about that. But sorry, back to your story, Eli.
I didn't either. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was technically where we first met. But yeah, so just got to know Devin when he was really just kind of starting with Dreams and Screams, and just kind of built a relationship there, and it's just been a lot of fun. I think I have the easiest job when it comes to making these. You know, I just come into the studio and just read a few lines, and I'm done. You know, I don't have to spend hours.
They're all taken.
I'm like,
don't let him lie to you people. Voiceover work is very tough.
I think Brian Bass has the easiest job. He just has to take shoot film and then lose the tape, right? That's all he has to do.
And seriously, like most of the time, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think most of the time there's not even film in the camera to begin with because Devin takes it out before he even goes to start filming. That he doesn't want any of Brian's work.
It's like the little fake driving wheel in the back of the car for the kid to use.
Yeah,
There's a
But he isn't here to defend himself. Sorry, Brian. We love you, Brian.
Oh, that's
Yeah, we
classic.
do. We miss him. We wish we could have 6 on tonight.
Yeah. To be honest with you, Eli, one of the first things from seeing the first Dreams to Screams that I watched, one of the things I said is, wow, that guy's voice is really amazing. And I remember, sitting down on the phone with Daniel Westfall and, just talking about it. I said, you know what? One of the highlights of this is the emotion, the inflection, how you just because anyone can just read a sentence, that's not difficult to do, but putting the right emotion behind that sentence and really capturing those moments.
Devin is really a great coach with that too. I mean, we talk a lot before I start. We talk a lot about the emotion that he wants to feel. Even as we're going over the lines, and you go over lines a few times, a few hundred times, each line. But he's really great to work with because if something's just slightly off from what he was thinking, he's able to very clearly explain the minor tweaks that he needs me to make. So he makes it really easy to do my jobs.
Now, did he make you ride the ride multiple times before you read the lines?
Before? No.
Okay.
Before, but definitely.
It was
That was
right after
me.
he
That was
finished
me.
recording. Yep, right after we. I think it was the day after he recorded the voiceover lines. I said, "You gotta experience this now. Let's go on a little drive." And so we went on I blindfolded him and we went on a 3.5 hour journey north and northwest, I guess. Yep. And I'll let you tell them about your experience on Fury.
Oh.
And what was that like after watching it so many times? Because we had to go through that so many times. You ran through you knew everything there was to know about the ride before you wrote it. Most people don't. So what was that like?
It was really amazing how, in the documentary, you hear everybody commenting about, how smooth it is and just how well it flows from one element to the next. But until you actually experience that, it's like, even hearing about it, it just does not. The hype is so much smaller than what it actually is when you're on the ride. It really is just so smooth. But I was so scared the first few times on that drop. I could not let go of the lap restraint stuff. I couldn't put my hands up on that drop because it was just so terrifying. But eventually, after I was like fifth time, I was able to just throw my hands up and say, I won't die.
Well, and to let folks in a little bit, you're not quite as far into the coaster world as the rest of us are. You're kind of more of the average fan. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. No. I enjoy roller coasters. I never really, as a kid, had the opportunity to go on many roller coasters, but I've definitely grown to enjoy it. But yeah, I'm not as crazy as you guys.
He's not crazy like the rest of us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think at this point, I think we're going to get into some listener comments here that we put out to our network of people. What questions they have for the crew here, and the first question comes from Mr. Chester, who asks, how did you get that sweet 360-degree view of the lift from what looked to be miles away? So how did that come about? Or is that a trade secret?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite shots, right there at the top of the hill there.
Well, that's something I've been wanting to try for years, kind of that stop motion matrix bullet time, but with a coaster, and it takes the right coaster to pull that off. It wouldn't have worked quite as well with Gatekeeper, for example. There would have been no way to do it with Outlaw Run. But Fury just created the perfect subject because you have that lift that just stands out above everything else. And it's just this monument that you can see from, a good 10 miles away from the park. And so it made my job a little bit easier, but I had to map out a good 180 radius around the ride and just, the first shot is a video and then the last shot is a video, but everything else in between is pictures taken a few feet apart from each other and then narrowing down what are the best angles in between on that journey from one side of the lift to the next, and some After Effects magic with motion blur and lining them all up roughly when you take them, lining them up precisely in post-production. And I'd never done it before, so it was kind of like one of those half a dozen shots I tried out that I didn't know if it would work or not, and loaded it up and watched it, and I was like, wow, that worked. That's going in there. In fact, let's make that the title shot. There were a lot of experimental shots that did not work out for this documentary, but it's just, that's the thing. You try a dozen of them and maybe 3 or 4 of them work.
Sweet.
Now, were all those pictures taken from inside the park, or did you go outside the park to do that?
It was, I'd say 2/3 inside, 1/3 outside, but it has to be in that perfect radius, that nice semicircle.
Yeah. Another question that was asked is, what is the process and the decision-making on the new ride that you choose for your documentaries? And this comes from Dason, one of your biggest fans that you met down in Virginia this summer. So he's basically asking, how do you choose the ride that you do each year?
Well, you see, if any of you have seen the Harry Potter series, you know how with the wand, you don't choose the wand. The wand chooses you.
Ooh. Yeah.
Or something like that. In a sense, not to get too crazy here, but in a sense, the ride chooses us, I would say, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. But there's access to think about, how willing the park is to give us the kind of access we need. There's distance away from the Devin Olson Media crew and how likely it is that we can go out there. Now we've set the bar at several trips out there to document the process. There's the stories involved. Who can we get to tell their story? Have we told their story before? What unique stories can we find? So there's probably a good dozen or more factors that go into that. But Fury just lined up on all fronts, and you know what? That was, if I could have done any ride in the world this year, it would have been Fury. And so it was just such a blessing that it was so close to our home base, our Devin Olson Media home base here in Savannah. And it was kind of between all of us. I mean, it was between me and Brian and me and Eli and me and Tawan. And so it chose us.
Speaking on that topic, another forum member and good friend of ours, Adam Beard, kind of asked a follow-up question to that and said, what is the process like for getting permission to film in the park, collaborating with the park, and what types of issues have you run into when dealing with the park? Yeah, because I know I've dealt with parks before, and everyone loves the end product, but sometimes getting to the end product isn't so nice of a road to travel. Do you have anything you'd like to speak on specifically? Just generalities, obviously, over the five or so you've done so far. You don't have to name names or name parks, but like what types of issues have you had from various places?
So in America, in the United States, we have this great thing called the Fifth Amendment, and that basically okay, so what are some generic, without calling anyone out? Yeah, that's the tough part, because, these are great people in the industry. Sometimes they have other priorities than someone coming in and spending tens of hours of their time working on a documentary, and sometimes we need to prove ourselves, and then that leads to great things in the end. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just trust in the beginning stages, and like, what are your motives in creating this documentary, and what's it going to look like when it's done, and then they have to budget a lot of time to give us the access that we need. So sometimes that takes some doing, and it's just like in any park, there's a lot of tensions between departments. For example, operations and planning and design, there's always tensions there because, oh my gosh, you can't shut down one of our main coasters before the season's over, but we need to because we're building this new coaster right next to it, and that wouldn't be safe to keep it operating. And it's just all these different concerns when you're dealing with a mini city, as it were, like most theme parks are, and then you get the legalities and the corporate side involved if it is a corporate chain, and so I think it's just working that all out with the most grace that we can and just the most understanding, and here's what we're trying to do, and it's for everyone's benefit, and we really, really think that you're going to like the end product, so please trust us. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think by this point you've built up a body of work. Because in dealing with the media, one of the first questions they ask is, what have you done before? Let me see examples of what you've done before. And I think now you have clear-cut examples of what you want to do, and you look at, like, each one has gotten better over time. And become more almost grandiose in nature. So it sets you up pretty nicely, I think, to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Watch this one. Take 20 minutes out of your life. And if you want that, we can do that for you at some level, And so to say that, to grease the wheels a little bit, to say, hey, this is what we can do for you. And I think that's pretty cool. That you guys have that body of work. But now another question that Adam Beard asked that I thought was pretty insightful is, do you have a target audience for these documentaries? Is it the enthusiast? Is it the GP member? Is it, possibly to get yourself other work at other parks? Like, what's your target audience for this?
Yeah. Well, I think in the beginning the target was more the enthusiast crowd, but over time it has broadened a lot. So if you look at the I-305 documentary, that would appeal mainly to an enthusiast. We're talking about the ride, we're talking about the technical specs, but getting into Fury, you have these stories that anyone, whether or not you give a crap about the theme park industry, anyone can latch onto that story and feel something. And so I think we've definitely broadened it. I can't scientifically tell you, we're after the 32 to 38-year-old male, living within this median income. So I can't tell you anything scientific, but our demographic is anyone who cares about people and hearing a personal story about someone overcoming a challenge for the betterment of the American dream, specifically the pursuit of happiness.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to add to that if I could. I think that
Yeah, go for it.
someone was telling me when they watched the documentary that they hate roller coasters, they can't stand them, they don't ride them, and this documentary really made them look at roller coasters differently. And because you have to remember that those are people who build them. Those are, you know, that subconsciously, but consciously, it's kind of like seeing a movie. You know, you don't understand the hundreds of thousands of people who have to, or thousands of people who have to end up helping with that movie until the end credits roll. So, you know, it's the same thing with this documentary. I think that, you know, we really got to see some of the main nuts and bolts that go into these people and how they make the ride. And then on top of that, like, again, like the Rob Deckers, I mean, was it Rob Decker? Yeah. You know, hitting you at the end with just, you know, saying things like, listen, I want to have this type of responsibility, but also be accountable to my family. And that's so huge. Those are the things that we're not thinking about when we're watching roller coaster documentaries. In fact, I think we should be calling Guinness. Yeah, I think that, you know, we should be in the Guinness Book of World Records for telling this type of story the way it's told for this type of subject matter. So in a way, we've created our own niche. There is nothing out there like it, that's quite like it, and I don't know if anybody could replicate it. You know, this is not like a Apple iPhone where some other manufacturer can come through and say, okay, well, we're going to throw a touch screen in our phones and, you know, do touch gestures. I think what Devin has been gifted and blessed with is the ability. It's not that these guys are opening up about these stories because they're so eager to talk, but it's because they're asked the question a particular way and there's a particular anointing on that question to make them give those type of answers, which in fact goes back to the edit table, and you're like looking at Clint and you're like, when Clint starts the documentary off, it sets the tone, you know, like this has raised the bar once again. And so those are the things you just can't coach people on doing. It's just magic, and it happens because of the type of questions that's asked from this guy on my screen right here. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, and you know, I think, you know, if you look at the industry as a whole, and especially the YouTube world, is you look at what coaster sites are doing out there and what coaster YouTube channels are doing out there, and not to knock what anyone else does, but it seems, you know, who can get things up the quickest, who can get things up the fastest, who has the best camera, you know, it's so technologically based, it's so time based, or it's you know, people who just throw together stuff on their computer screens and aren't actually in the park living the stuff. Like, there's so much stuff out there, but there's so little quality stuff. Like, even on television, to move away from YouTube, you know, I've said this before. You know, the Travel Channel shows are nice to watch, like we said on the first show, but at some level, they don't reach the depth and the stories that people want. And I think that's where, Devin, you've carved yourself out this niche, that it's not about putting up, you know, the video as quick as possible. It's not about getting it up within minutes of them handing it to me, you know, after I do the RPOV. It's not about that. Anyone can do things quickly, but you do them well, and I think that's what sets you apart from everyone else on YouTube. It's that move to do them well, to tell a good story, and we just don't see that really anywhere else.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. I came from the world of journalism. That was what I studied in school, and I realized pretty quickly that that was not the world for me, because it's all about, like you were saying, timeliness, and it's all about hype. And those are not really things that I want to focus on. I just want to focus on quality, and I have OCD. I've been diagnosed with OCD, and that's, I mean, I can't live with myself if I don't take a look at every single little detail in there and have time to try to perfect it. But you know what? None of that would really matter if I didn't have people like Tawan and Eli and Brian, who also share that same dedication to quality. I mean, Eli's in the studio and we're having to do the same line 25 times, 25 different ways, and I'm sure at some point he's a little sick of saying this line, but you would never know it. And Tawan, same thing with him. You know, he's out there by the Fury sign for an hour in probably 100-degree heat, just sweat pouring down his face, and yet he will not agree to leave until he nails that shot perfectly that he's going for. And Brian, I mean, even though he isn't here, I got to compliment him too. It's the same type of thing where on shoots like Outlaw Run, here he is like panning a camera as a train screams past at 70-some miles an hour, and he's doing it over and over and over until he lines it up perfectly with the car going by in front of them. And so, you know, I got the best team in the world, and I'm not ashamed to admit that, and that's what makes it all possible.
Well, and I can also say that this is not anything new with you either. That, you know, to do a little plug here, recently over the last few weeks, we've been releasing some of your old work in Digital Delirium. And you may recognize this one, King's Dominion. But I'll tell you what, the stuff that you did, I don't know, what is it, 7-8 years ago at King's Dominion is probably better than 99% of the stuff on YouTube right now. Even, you know, the camera quality is a little bit lesser because you're working with cameras from 2008. Obviously, you know, HD was, you know, in its early stages. But to be honest with you, the artistry in it is there. And I think that's another thing that sets these documentaries apart is the different shots you get, like you talked about earlier, taking risks on new types of shots and, you know, trying out new ideas. That's the type of stuff that makes these documentaries special. The one thing I will say, though, is the one shot you loved on this was the reflection in the water or the puddle shot. And I want to see that come back for Dreams to Screams. You need to bring back the reflection of the puddle shot.
Need to do
I had one during the construction of Fury, but you couldn't quite make out that the reflection was of the ride because it was so muddy at that time. It was so muddy. Had the water been just a touch clearer, I could have used it, but I think those days are long gone, and hopefully you replaced all the very much copywritten, unlicensed soundtrack that I used back then, which, by the way, I didn't realize that me selling those on eBay back then with a copywritten soundtrack meant that, well, hopefully no one from the music licensing industry is watching this show today, and hopefully they don't come after me 8 or 10 years late, because that was, I didn't have a Tawan in my life back then, so hopefully you took care of that.
Yeah, we did. We added all new YouTube soundtracks, and you know what? Disturbingly, though, I got to look inside the mind of Devin Olson with the music choices you chose, and some of them were a little bit eye-opening with, wow.
Oh, gosh.
They were terrible.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. My music taste has changed quite a bit in the past decade. Let me just say that.
Oh, it was
for the better.
It was fun, though. So I took the time and lined up all new songs from the royalty-free YouTube. And actually, I tried to line them up with the mood of what you were trying to get at. And I think it came out pretty nicely. So if you haven't checked those out yet, just in general for all the listeners, check out the Digital Delirium videos. We call it the COASTER-net throwback. And all of them are really well done. And you got some pretty exclusive rides there. No, they are. I loved them. They were
as much as I hate them, you know, I don't typically take down my older work because I think there is a greater philosophy at play, and that is it's cool to look back and see how much you've grown, even if you were producing absolute, horse manure back then, compared to what you do now. But it was terrible. And by the way, the reason I chose those songs, I was in this weird stage of life where everything had to fit the lyrics.
Yes.
And so, like, someone has the word stand up in a song, I'm like, oh, Shockwave, it's a Shockwave.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're out of that phase.
Yeah. My favorite part was definitely the what I call the ode or the homage to Hypersonic XLC, and the Klingon like wailing to the heavens as you stood above where it used to stand, and that was classic. I don't know. That would be the next segment that we release is the Hypersonic XLC homage. Anyway, I guess back to this documentary that we've plugged ourselves enough in our YouTube channel enough that to get a few extra listeners. Let's find another listener question here. What has been, and this can go to any one of you guys, what has been the most rewarding experience you've gained from doing these projects?
Yeah, this is one that all three of you should answer, I think.
Devin?
Eli?
Well, I'd just say getting a better glimpse into the coaster community has actually been a really great highlight for me. Honestly, growing up as a kid, even as a teenager, I did not get to really go anywhere where there were roller coasters just because of where we lived. So really seeing this new community that I hadn't really known anything about it's pretty cool actually, and getting more into coasters. So that's really been a highlight for me of being involved in this. Just going to more parks and riding rides and really getting to enjoy that.
Now I have a follow-up quick to that question. So, like we said, you're maybe a little farther outside of the coaster community than the rest of us. So now you've gotten some glimpses into the coaster community doing these documentaries. So is it really, really strange to get into that? Like when you first get exposed to that type of community and I guess that type of fandom, and as I'm sure you know now, there's some just wild and crazed fans, kind of like Andy and myself, who sit on YouTube for hours on end and talk about roller coasters here. There's plenty of people that do that. Is it strange to kind of be a part of that when you yourself haven't been a big part of it, and to kind of jump over that line between average fan and hardcore fan, or is it kind of what you would expect?
It's kind of what I would expect. I'm kind of different in a sense. I grew up in a military family, so I've been to a lot of different places and seen a lot of different types of communities and stuff. And so new communities, new groups of people, I find very fascinating, and nothing really takes me by shock, and I'm no culture shock with any community. So I think it's just been a blast to do this. I think it makes sense, the enthusiasm that people have for roller coasters, because they really are such a thrill once you get involved. And if I had more time to go to parks even now, I would go a lot more than I get to. So I would, if I had the time, I would probably become, an extreme coaster fan. But yeah, no, it makes sense to me, the community. I get it. I just haven't had the experience to put into to call myself that a fan.
Tawan, how about you? What was your most rewarding experience on this, or any of them?
Well, for me, I got to backtrack just a little bit and say that I'll always be grateful to Clint Novak, because I don't know if everybody here is friends with me on Facebook pretty much, but I had a pretty emotional post last Friday as he was preparing to get married. But Clint actually took me in when I was homeless. I was actually homeless, living in my car between jobs, and I met this guy at karaoke. He was the nicest guy on the planet. And he was like, listen, I love to go to theme parks, and, as long, you can come and live with me. And when I went to live with him, he introduced me to this coaster community and let me know, how serious you guys take it. It's almost like the mafia sometimes, where I'm like, who's going to get shot? Someone's going to get shot. And but I remember just he was telling me about this ride called Alpi, and they kept calling it Alpi, and I was like, what's an Alpi? I'll always be grateful for those days, because if it wasn't for that, then I don't know if I would ever be where I'm at today. Whereas, like, being able to go to these parks, and now we're doing major films for, like Busch Gardens and things like that, and I remember just in '05, I was like, what's an Alpi? And so for that transition to happen, I think my most rewarding experience is definitely just that experience. Was, you don't know how these little moments in your life are going to culminate into the bigger story of your life. And because of that interaction, it also, it helps you rejoice for the bad times. Sometimes you're going through hard times, but you can't get so down on yourself. I was in a really bad place back then, but now look at me. I just finished 2 documentaries in a year, for composing. And, the most rewarding experience is having the very first roller coaster song that is worth anything be out there in the wild. I think that's awesome. I've Googled roller coaster songs. I have YouTubed it. I can't find much about it. You see a few people out there who have done very small things, but nothing on the scale of, like, Feel the Fury, for example, which could be its own bona fide single. And so I think that, I think my most rewarding experience is coming up with that song and having Devin look at me with those eyes of his, like, I don't know how this is going to work, but I trust you. He was skeptic, but Devin is the ultimate optimist.
A documentary soundtrack? What?
Yeah. Like, I told Devin, I said, I want to do something that's never been done before. I want to do a vocal soundtrack for this, and Devin is the ultimate optimist. He's like, sure, yeah, man, you do. Give me a high five.
Going, but I'm gonna find out whether I like it or not.
So Devin's giving me, like, the high five, but in the back of his mind, he's like, what the hell is he gonna do? I don't know. But to see it come together like that, where I've gotten emails, I've gotten Instagrams, I've gotten Facebook messages from people I don't know, just saying, like, where can I find the Fury song? Where can I get it? Or the song for Rob Mosley makes me cry. Like, like that stuff is magic, because people, I think music nowadays has gotten so mainstream, it's easy to forget about it. But, man, the power of music is still so powerful. I mean, it's so powerful. If anything, when you hear the do, and you don't feel something at the end of that documentary, there is something that you feel like it's coming, it's happening, it's about to go down. And then when it goes into the Feel the Fury, and by the way, I have gotten this question, so I want to answer it here live. The song is actually sang from the perspective of the train. So I've had some people ask me, how did you write the song? Well, actually, I'm the train, and I'm saying, I'm fast. Can you see me? I'm moving so fast. And the fury is the track. So feel the fury all around me. So it's feel this track, and it's all around me, the train. And it's taking me 325. And so just so people have that, a lot of people don't know that. So when I reveal that to them, they're like, I thought you were singing because you were the person. And it's like, it's like, yeah, no, I'm singing because the song is the track. I mean, it's the train. So yeah, that was a well-known, a not well-known fact about that song. So
Cool.
So
Devin,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's really the $1 million question, and that's one of my favorite questions to ask while doing these documentaries, so that kind of takes it full circle a little. But most rewarding for me, just like the documentary itself, it's not about the ride, it's about the people. Most rewarding for me is the people that I get to work with and the people I get to meet. And really the ride is just kind of a subplot along that greater story. And getting to work with a close friend like Tawan or like Eli or like Brian and just kind of going out on that mission together as brothers, just like us against the project and conquering it and knowing like this seems impossible right now, but check back in another year, in another 2 years, and you're going to see this vision that's in my head right now. And just the people that we met, like Ronnie Mosley, such an incredible guy. And I mean, like myself, a devout Christian. He really values his family. He values his faith. He prays for his guys every single day. That just, I mean, blew me away, that he cares so much about his guys that are out there hundreds of feet in the air, that he and his wife pray for them every single day. That just, I mean, that, like, I want to be your best friend, Ronnie. Like, I want to work for you. I want you to pray for me every day while I go out there and lift tons of steel into the air, and just to see how much they care about their people, and how much he cared about this project, that he would devote a day of his life to me coming up there and getting a glimpse into his world. That's this experience that I could never pay to have. You know, some people might pay a lot of money to go on a VIP coaster tour. I feel like I'm getting this everyday, like, VIP behind-the-scenes tour of this industry that I fell in love with at a young age. And just getting to meet the most incredible people in the world. So that, for me, is the true reward in all of it, even if it's a project that we don't see a dime from and that we might spend thousands of dollars on to bring to life as an executive producer and as a crew. So that's something that I really thank God for every single day.
Well, I think that's a point that, you know, a lot of people miss on this, is that you guys don't make any money off of this at all. That you're doing this because you love doing it. That, you know, a lot of people are making a lot of money off of YouTube, and you could make a lot of money off of YouTube, but you don't. You don't monetize the videos. That's why anytime you turn on the From Dreams to Scream series on your channel, you won't see any ads on them. There will be no ads. There'll be ads on our channel, though. We're still trying to figure our way to the park. So when you turn on Uncut, you will see ads, because we're trying to, you know, keep ourselves afloat here, basically. We're
trying to buy ourselves a pretzel at Busch Gardens next year.
We also sell calendars, too. If you haven't bought yours yet, you should go buy yours.
I got this year.
Plug.
But I think that's what a lot of people miss with you guys, is the fact that you guys don't make a dime off of this. You could, but you don't. And whereas everyone else is trying to find ways to monetize different stuff, to sell this to different places, you know, ultimately, I know you guys want to make money, that your dream is to, you know, have, you know, a lot more business within the coaster industry, but you guys are involved in so many other different projects with documentaries that, you know, that's where you make your money a lot. And so I think a lot of enthusiasts miss the boat on this and don't realize that you guys are doing this purely because you love the ride. And if it wasn't for that love, you know, there wouldn't be any other motivation besides that to do it, I think. So, you know, I think that should just be stated so that everyone knows and understands the level of dedication that all of you guys from the whole team put forth, because you just love the ride and love working with each other. And I think that's a great thing to have. I can say from the bottom of my heart, I would not be on COASTER-net if I didn't like the people I worked with. If I couldn't stand Dwayne or Daniel or Danny or whoever else, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in this area.
Most of the time, anyways.
Well, most of it. We have our arguments, but it's you enjoy the people you work with, and that makes you want to do more work and makes you want to try things. And it's not about money. It's not about, like, we don't make any money on COASTER-net. We're in the hole every month. You know, so that's, you know, that's neither here nor there. But we do it because we love it, and I think that's admirable for you guys as well. You do it because you love it.
Well, to quote one of our favorite people in the industry that we've fortunately gotten to work for a lot in the past, Joel Manby. Some of you might remember him from Undercover Boss. Well, some of you might not know that he wrote this book called Love Works, and it's about his style of leadership. And now, especially as CEO of the SeaWorld Parks chain, he's carrying these principles into that world too. And one of his principles that really stuck out to me in the book is that money is not the point of business. And that's kind of counterintuitive. Money is necessary for business, but it's not the point of business, just the same as oxygen and blood are not the point of life, but they're necessary for life. And so I think that that's definitely a big takeaway from what we do, is that, yes, money is essential to keep things going at some point. You don't see it right away. You might do a project, and then a year later someone might call you because they saw that project, and they might book you for a, $10, $20, $30,000 gig or something even smaller, something bigger. Who knows? But that's why you sacrifice the money up front, and you might spend $5,000 to $10,000 to produce a documentary like this because of A, the passion, and B, some money needs to come eventually, but probably someone high up in the industry will see this and like it and hire you indirectly because of it. So, yeah, the money comes. Like, it happens eventually, but you hit the nail on the head, Andy. It's not about that. That's not the point of it. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Danny, any final questions or thoughts here? I think we're nearing the end of our time.
I don't think I have any final questions. I think we really covered a lot between the last time we had you guys on and having you on tonight. But, we've talked about it a little bit about how, we're all here because we're passionate about something, and we're passionate about the industry, and we're passionate about what we do and our work or our hobbies, and it all comes together. And, Andy, you talked about it, how, you and I would not be friends if it were not for roller coasters and the enthusiast community and the amusement industry and, meeting through COASTER.net. And you and I have had the opportunity to go to several parks together. We've done a show, live in a park. We've gone to events together. We do this show every week. You and I, the first time we met was Gatekeeper Media Day back in 2013, and that's the first time that I got to meet Devin and Brian at Gatekeeper Media Day. And, I think, and Devin, Brian, Tuan, Eli, Andy, Daniel, Dwayne, all those guys. None of this would be possible if we didn't have this common interest and weren't passionate about it. And, I really think that it goes beyond just having a common interest and beyond just having this common hobby that we just happen to all get together. We might see each other once a year in person, if that. But at the end of the day, we can call up each other or message each other up on Facebook here and say, hey, let's get together and do a show, and let's talk about this great thing that we all share together here. And I know, Devin, Tuan, Eli, Brian, you guys, thank you for letting us be a part of what you guys do just as much as we enjoy having you guys on the show here and talking to you about this. It's really great to be able to share this great hobby and this great common interest with a great group of folks like yourself. So from me, thank you for helping us help you, and for us being able to help you, and you helping us out by giving us something to talk about this week. Like I said, it's really great to be able to share this hobby with folks like yourself.
Well said.
Well, yes, very well said, and thank you for helping us, help you, help us, help you. Thanks for that. Trying to figure out how the whole help diagram works. It's seriously, it's an honor.
He's thinking it's for the ecosystem. It's an ecosystem. What I've learned about the coastal community, that ultimately it is an ecosystem. Yes, it is an ecosystem. Every piece of the coastal community has a life, has a purpose. It's like if you cut off an arm, your life will never be the same. Well, without COASTER.net, or without Coaster Crew, or without some of the other fine roller coaster organizations out there, there would be something wrong with the entire body. And so I think that we all come together as
That is
one
true.
body of individuals. We make up a body, and if something's wrong with the finger, then that's a problem for the whole body. And so I think that that's the great thing about this coaster community, and why I got sucked into it is because ultimately, no matter how mafia-like it may seem at times, and believe me, I like to say again that sometimes I get a little afraid. I'm like, I hope this guy doesn't like snipe me
Absolutely.
20 yards away. But it really is a community, it's an ecosystem, and it's one body of people who come together because they love a safe way to do dangerous things, as Elizabeth would say.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome.
Any final thoughts from you, Eli, tonight on this whole thing?
Whole thing.
A pretty broad question, Andy.
Yeah.
No, I would say I am extremely grateful to be a part of Dreams to Screams. I'm also extremely grateful to be on the show with you guys and just get the chance to hear, the stories from you guys, but also get to share a part of my story and just see how all these stories come together and how intertwined they become. I just really appreciate the whole thing. I'm definitely growing in my coaster enthusiasm as I continue.
Uh-oh.
Hey, before you go, Eli, you need to quote something from the documentary in your golden voice, okay? Your favorite line. Yeah.
Favorite line? That's
so
going to be
many,
difficult.
I can't remember it. That's all right.
Even just from dreams to screams, Fury. 3, 2, 5.
Yeah, dude, it's like John Hammond at Jurassic Park. Welcome to Jurassic Park. Do Dreams to Screams.
Do it.
From Dreams to Screams, Fury 325.
Yeah. And I tried to get him to do the play-by-play while we rode the ride, and he was sitting next to me, terrified, holding on with both hands, but he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it.
Man, you should that could go in the blooper reel at the end. Him trying to narrate the ride, like, oh my god, big 95 miles per. Oh my god!
Oh, are we getting a live performance, Tawan? Come on, feel the fury live.
I'm sorry.
Feel the fury live. Do it.
I was gonna do the guitar riff that he's saying when he's saying Fury from Dreams to Screams. I can't do it. All my kids are asleep. My wife will kill me.
Okay, sing us one line from the song. One line.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'm fast. Can you see me? I'm moving so fast, and you're in my control. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah!
All right, very nicely done.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna get him to sing that while we ride the ride together next time we're on it together.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
everyone come to Carowinds that day.
And no one will know what we're talking about. Everyone on the train right there talking.
Ride takeover at Carowinds to hear the song. Well, on that note, I'd like to thank you guys very much for being with us this evening.
Did we have an announcement?
Well, there is one question left, and it's the big question. But before we get to the big question, it's I wanted to say thank you. Thanks very much for being here. But the question is, and this is a tough one, okay? This is going to be the hardest hitting. You thought my beginning questions were hard.
Difficult question all night.
Yeah, this is it. Almost every single person asked this. What is the next From Dreams to Screams project? What is it?
So after a lot of traveling the country, I think Danny mentioned I was up at Cedar Point recently, and been talking to some folks in Tennessee.
Tell them.
the Dollywood region, and
Tell 'em.
maybe having a trip down to Orlando recently. I mean, been all over the place, kind of looking at some of these new projects for next year, and yeah. I do believe that a ride has chosen us, and that ride is
Hello, gentlemen. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought I would do the pleasure of announcing your next documentary. That's right, it's me. And I am here to tell all of your wonderful fans that Impulse will be the next project for Devin Olson Media, and you can believe that. Dreams to Screams Impulse. That's right. I said your next project would be Impulse, did I not? Yet here you are doing a second Dreams to Screams show. This is a fine product here. I am a big fan of the COASTER-net calendar, some great pictures inside. Ah yes, may it rest in peace. Oh, another classic. Great water rides. Wonderful new coasters. Oh. But our next month, what do we have? One of the most overrated roller coasters of all time. You can even see the Golden Ticket Awards gave it a 1 out of 10. What were you thinking putting this in your calendar? Well, let me just take care of this. Now, Devin Olson Media, your dream team. Consider this your final warning. Produce an Impulse Dreams to Screams documentary, or suffer the consequences. You get the picture.